we're streaming live to YouTube, and then we'll get started. All right. So once again, welcome to the Fall 2024 Pre-Arrival Series. This is session number 2 of our Pre-Arrival Series, and this session is focused on finances and payments, which I know a lot of students have questions about when it comes to what are the actual costs of attending MSU and how do they make payments. So this session hopefully will answer your questions. And if there's any additional questions, we will be taking time for question and answer at the end of this presentation. So feel free to type your questions into the chat, whether you're on Zoom or if you're joining us on YouTube, you can type your questions in there in the comment section, and we will be happy to answer those at the end. So you probably have been getting emails from both Alyssa and I, or have met with us throughout your application process, but we'll quickly introduce ourselves. My name is Elizabeth Lorenz. I'm the Assistant Director of International Recruitment and Enrollment at Minnesota State University, Mankato. So thank you for joining us today.
And thank you. We're so happy you're here. I am Alyssa Morrison, and I am the Director of International Recruitment and Communications. And yeah, Elizabeth and I are probably the people that are always there emailing you. We're going to be the ones doing a lot of these sessions throughout the summer. So we're going to get to know you quite well.
All right, with that, I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started with our presentation. All right, there we go. So welcome, future Mavericks. Now that you've all been accepted, you are officially part of the Maverick community. And if you're not sure yet what a Maverick is, that is our mascot. We are the Mavericks. So you will be part of the global Maverick team, and we're so excited to have you on campus and to welcome you. So once again, this session is focused on finances. So a couple of the topics we will cover in this session is planning for your budget for studying at Minnesota State University. So what's included in that budget and costs you need to be aware of, how to make payments to the university, and when it comes time to paying your bill, what's the process of doing that, how to open a bank account when you come to the US. That's an important piece of being able to make payments to the university. Housing costs and options that you have when it comes to living in Mankato. Health insurance, that's a big financial topic for a lot of our students because it's something you'll have to pay each year in addition to the cost of the university. We'll talk about scholarship opportunities, and working on campus, and then some additional employment opportunities that you might have as a benefit of being an international student. So just concepts around finances, how to make payments, how to apply for scholarships, and financial opportunity or employment opportunities. So with that, I'll give it over to you, Alyssa.
Awesome. So I know that getting a plan together for your education is really exciting. And sometimes we don't want to talk about the boring pieces like your budget, but your budget is going to be the most important thing. So please remember that having this conversation with your family, your parents, your sponsor before coming is really important, and knowing what your budget is so that you can make smart decisions when you come. So currently, our estimated cost of attendance includes your tuition and fees. Those are pretty well set for this coming year. We also include living expenses. So, where you're going to live, groceries, utilities, paying for your internet, all of that good stuff. And even though some of our students do live with family that are in the Mankato area, we still need to see that you can afford living expenses because you never know what would happen. And also, we hope that if you are staying with family, you are contributing in some way to their home. Like maybe do the dishes at least every once in a while. But so, tuition and fees, your living expenses, health insurance is a big thing and it is a yearly cost. So, always, or not always, but talk to your parents about how am I going to pay that every summer? Your books and supplies, and then personal expenses. So personal expenses vary from living expenses because those are items that we typically think of like fun, things that are going to help you enjoy your life and improve it. So maybe going out to eat, going to the movies, just having some small money to do fun things with your friends. So that is all listed on your I-20, but there are some costs that you need to think about that are not included on that I-20 estimate. So the first one is your SEVIS I-901 fee. So that's $350 that you need to pay before your visa interview. Then you would also need to pay the visa fee every time you schedule a visa interview, and that's $185. So if you schedule one interview and you're denied, you don't get that money refunded. If you were to then decide to try a second appointment, you would then pay the $185 again. So that alone is a big investment. So just remember that. And then your travel expenses. So your airfare, the shuttle from the Minneapolis St. Paul Airport to Mankato, if you need to get a hotel, eating while you're coming here, because plane food is not always the best. So these are all things that you need to budget for outside of the I-20 cost. And, you know, I've been buying some plane tickets and they're not cheap right now. So I feel like for most locations where our students are coming from, round trip tickets, so not one way, but round trip are anywhere from $1,800 to $2,500. So some things to think about.
So when we actually look at what the cost is for each of those categories that Alyssa mentioned are factored into your budget, this is the graph that we have, and you've probably seen this before either on our website when you applied or when you've been filling out your I-20 request form. But basically, these are the annual expenses when it comes to education. It says on here 2023, 2024 costs. I forgot to update that. It is 2024, 2025 costs for right now. And so in the columns here, I just want to point out something that's tied into the cost of attendance, but also the scholarship information. On the far right column, it has the cost of attendance with the non-Minnesota resident tuition rate. And in that middle column, it says cost of attendance with the International Maverick Scholarship. So there is two different rates when it comes to undergraduate tuition and fees. So all international undergraduate students are initially billed tuition and fees as if they were a non-resident of the state of Minnesota. That's how tuition is determined in the state of Minnesota at public institutions. So you'll see that tuition and fee rate for 2 semesters is $18,812. But as you hopefully know, every international student who is accepted to the undergraduate program automatically receives the International Maverick Scholarship. And that is a 30% tuition reduction each year that you maintain that scholarship. So for the first year with that scholarship, your tuition will be reduced by $7,700. And that brings the cost of tuition for 2 semesters to $11,112. So that's for 2 semesters where you're taking full-time classes of anywhere from 12 to 18 credits. So that's a great benefit that the university provides in the form of that scholarship. So for the rest of the items, we're looking at that middle column. Nothing else changes between the two columns, but your living expenses is going to, for 2 semesters, is approximately $10,200. That is based on living in the dormitories on campus, which is optional. And we'll talk about your housing options a little bit later. So just be aware, we create the standard living expense cost based off of our dormitory rates. If you choose to live off campus, that cost might look a little bit different, but that's just how we standardize what you should expect and plan to spend for living expenses. And that does include dormitory and a meal plan. So it's your food and your accommodations. The next item is books and supplies. So this is in the US, it's expected that you purchase your textbooks for your classes. And some classes might have additional course supplies that you need to purchase. For example, if you are a student studying nursing, you will need to purchase some supplies for your laboratory classes. You might need to purchase the uniforms or the scrubs that they wear for their laboratories. So that's just one example. Other majors might have additional supplies that you're expected to purchase in addition to the textbooks for your classes. So for 2 semesters, we tell students to plan around $1,400 or $700 per semester. Now, a lot of students get by cheaper than this because they buy used textbooks or they might rent their textbooks, and that usually comes at a much cheaper rate than buying a new textbook. Some professors are also really good about helping students accessing textbooks. So there might be an online ebook that you can purchase for cheaper, or they might even sometimes say, hey, there's no textbook required for this course, but here's some additional reading supplies. Each class is going to look a little bit different when it comes to the textbook requirements. So just be prepared for that. The next item is health insurance. We get a lot of questions about health insurance from students and if it is required. Yes, it is mandatory 99.9% of the time for almost all students, with very limited exceptions. So this is something you need to plan for, and it is an expense that will happen year after year. So health insurance will provide medical health insurance coverage in the US for 12 months. And that current rate is around $2,300 for 12 months of coverage. The final item to plan for is personal expenses. Like Alyssa said, this can be your fun money. So going out to eat with friends, going to the movies, going shopping, maybe you need to purchase some furniture for your apartment. These are things to kind of plan for additional personal expenses outside of the university. So all of that combined totals to $26,710 when you factor in the International Maverick Scholarship. So that's a significant amount of money for 1 year of expenses. So it is very important to have conversations early with your parents or whoever your financial sponsor might be so that they understand the significance of these costs, where the budget is coming from, and you have a plan in place of how you will pay these expected costs year over year. And we want to tell students to plan ahead early because the most stressful thing for a lot of students when it comes to studying in the US is how they're going to pay for their education. So we do not want you to be in the situation where you get to the US and suddenly your financial situation falls apart and you're not able to make payments. Students just have really difficult times focusing on being a student when they're stressed about finances. So have honest and proactive conversations with your financial sponsor. One final thing on this budget, these are estimated expenses. They are subject to change each year. So typically around June or July, the university determines if tuition and fees will increase at all, as well as if housing costs will increase and health insurance will increase. So there is a slight chance that these costs for the fall semester might look a little bit different than what is published here. That's simply because we don't have all the updated rates that are available until June or July in the coming months. So as soon as those are available, we will update those so students are aware of any cost changes.
So that's what you get to pay to come be a student here. And we're going to talk about how to make those payments now. One thing that is really where we get asked all the time, and it's a good question, is when do I get billed? So you actually pay your tuition per semester. I think we'll probably talk about this a little later too, but it's important. So it's okay. But before you are allowed to register, you must make the health insurance payment. So that is an expense that you need to come ready to pay for right away. You could also pay before you arrive. Your tuition, though, will not be billed to you until after you register for your classes, and it is per semester. So you'll register for fall classes, you will receive your bill for fall classes, then you pay that off. And then once you have that paid off, you register for spring classes, and then you get your bill for spring, so on and so forth. So we do not expect that you come and just, hand us $26,000. It's not how this works. So when you make a payment, there are a few ways. You can pay through a third-party company called Flywire. So this is if you want to do a direct bank transfer of funds. This is how you would do it. We cannot do a bank-to-bank transfer. It has to go through Flywire. One nice thing about Flywire is they are getting you the best exchange rates. They are collecting all the important information that we need to make sure that your money is actually put onto your account. There's a small fee of $25 for the transfer, but that fee is a flat fee. So whether you're sending $10,000, $2,000, it's the same. The next way that is most common for students, especially when they get here to the United States, is to pay online through e-services. If you paid an application fee, you are already acquainted with this method, most likely. So you have a credit card, or if you have a debit card, you would be able to use that to make the payment online. Once you are here, you can actually make a payment in person. So you could bring cash with you. We do accept credit cards and debit cards. If you have Apple Pay, we do take Apple Pay here at the cashier's office. So different options are available to you if you are in person. We have automatic monthly payment plans. And so that is through a company called Nelnet. And when you enroll in that program, it is a $34 enrollment fee per semester, and it will break your payments up into potentially 3 payments, 4 or 5, depending on when you sign up for the payment plan. If you arrive in the United States and sign up for the payment plan in September, it's likely only going to break that payment down into 3 payments. If you signed up in July or August, though, then you will be able to get smaller payments, but longer. And then for the fall 2024 semester, you are required to pay all tuition by September 30th. So a good time to remember for.
All right. Another question we get asked by students is when and how can they open a bank account in the US? In almost all cases, you do need to be in the United States and apply or open a bank account in person in most situations. So this is something that you can do when you come to Mankato, and you can go to whichever bank that you choose to open an account with, and they'll assist you with that application and the documents that you need. But just in summary, this is the process that you can typically follow for most banks when it comes to opening a bank account. So we recommend doing this as early as you are able to when you arrive in the US, because it will just make your life so much easier if you have access to money as soon as possible once you're in the US. Because we know electronic wire transfers and payments and things like that can take a long time. So just having that bank account set up will help a lot. So you can choose any bank location anywhere in the United States, but in Mankato specifically, some of the top banks that students will open an account with include Wells Fargo. This is a US bank that's offered nationwide. They have locations in every state in the US. They have great online banking platforms, so it's very easy to manage your money and check in on your bank account. US Bank is the same way, locations all over the United States. It's a national bank. And again, all banks these days have really great online platforms where you can view your accounts, manage money, and make payments. So any of these banks will have that option. There's also Affinity Federal Credit Union. This is located on campus. It's slightly different than a bank because it's a credit union, but for simplicity's sake, it operates in a very similar fashion. So to be member, to join that credit union, you actually become a member of the bank. So you have opportunities to vote on different procedures and things like that, which is kind of cool. You kind of have a say in your money and how things are managed. So there is a location of Affinity Credit Union on campus. So if you're interested in that, that is the only financial resource directly at the university. The others are located a couple miles from the university. And of course, there's many more bank options from local small town banks that you can go to in Mankato to other nationwide banks. So the choice is yours when it comes to which bank you want to open an account with. So those are just a few of the recommendations we have. When you do open an account, likely you will need to go to that bank in person so they can verify your identity, and to open a personal checking or savings account. And you'll need to bring some documents with you, such as your passport, your visa, the I-20, your student ID from the university, and your local address of where you are living. You will also need to bring money that you plan to deposit into your account. This can be as little as $10. It does not need to be a huge amount, but just something to place into that account when it's open. So you can deposit cash, you can use a debit card or a credit card or other bank notes to open that checking or savings account. So we would recommend in most cases to open some type of personal checking account, because usually that comes with a debit card or credit card option. So you have the card that's directly tied to your account and can easily access your money. Once your account is set up, you'll have access to mobile banking and debit card options. And when it comes to making payments at the university, that will just make your life so much more convenient having that account. All right. So next, we'll talk about housing options for students. Alyssa, are you good covering this one?
I am, yes, sorry. I got.
Oh no, you're all good. You're all good.
Oh, you know how that goes, right?
I do know how it goes.
Yes. All right. Sorry, everyone. Yeah, so let's look at the differences of renting off campus versus on campus housing. I think the first thing I want to say is, um, a lot of times people think living on campus is really expensive. And when we look at all of the expenses, which we will here, you're going to see that it's pretty comparable, actually. And for many students, I was like this when I went to college. You're not really, you've never had to take care of yourself completely. You have not made all of your meals, you've not cleaned your house, all of those things on your own. And so on-campus housing is doing a lot of those services for you, which will provide an easier transition. And it is it's kind of worth the extra money. Trust me, as an adult who does all of these things every day, I'd pay a little extra to have it done for me. So, all right, but when we're looking specifically at off-campus renting, which is usually the most popular option, the average monthly cost for 12 months of living is about $1,100. So that includes your rent, your utilities, like electricity, water, heat, all that good stuff. It includes your food and renter's insurance, which we do really recommend you buy. Some things to consider when you're thinking about your options. Typically, when you are renting off campus, you are making a 12-month commitment. So it's usually a 12-month lease with a security deposit. So that means if you are signing a lease from August 1st, the landlord is expecting that you will continue to make payments and live there all the way through the next July. There are a lot of student-friendly apartments near campus. Some of them are literally right across the street. Some of them are maybe 2 or 3 kilometers from campus. But we do have free transportation, and our buses are going to the main student apartments like every 20 minutes. If you're living a little bit further out, maybe you're at that 3-kilometer mark, it might be a once an hour bus or once every 30 minutes, but there's transportation set up. When you live off campus, you are usually expected to pay all of your utilities unless it's specified in your lease that something is included. But electricity is usually always separate from your rent and can be quite expensive depending on, your preferences. If you like air conditioning in the summer, your electricity bill is going to go up higher. If you like to have the lights on in your house 24 hours a day, your bill will be higher. Gas and water are kind of very dependent on where you're living. Some apartment complexes have gas and water included, and so it's just part of your monthly rent. Others you will have to pay separately. So it's really important to read the lease closely and see what's included. And then same with internet. Some student apartment complexes do have internet just set up for you, and it's part of your rent. But I think a majority of them, you are required to get your own internet and pay for that monthly expense. Internet in the United States usually costs anywhere from $40 a month to $80. You would be able to split that with your roommates, but it is an expense. All right, you're responsible for cooking and cleaning. And while that may not seem like a lot, you've got your laundry, the washing machine may not be in your building. You may need to go somewhere else for it. If you're cooking, you're going to have to make sure that you've got food in the house. Eating out is affordable in the US, but if you do it all the time, it's not going to be very sustainable. You can live alone. You can also live with roommates. We have apartment complexes that have 5-person apartments. Sometimes you live with a sibling, friend. Sometimes you're just placed with individuals. And if you have the budget, you could live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment too. So there are a lot of options. Just like in your home countries, if you live alone, it's going to be more expensive. If you live with 4 roommates, it will be less expensive. If you live off campus, either way, you do have access to getting a meal plan for campus meals. And that's kind of nice because that would take off some of that preparation from you, but that's your choice. So those are important things to consider. In our housing section that we have later this summer, like in June, we'll start having housing. There will be even more information on this stuff. So when we look at on-campus housing and that monthly average for 9 months, because it is a 9-month contract for the year, you would pay about $1,300 per month. That is inclusive of your room, your meals, everything pretty much. The one thing is, if you do plan to stay here over the summer, you would need to find a different place to stay, or you can apply to stay in the dorms over the summer, but it's an additional expense. In the fall, if you come, you are required to live in the residence hall fall and spring if you sign up to live on campus. So it's not required to live on campus, but if you choose to, you are required to stay the full year. You need to pay a $250 deposit to hold your spot. If you do not get your visa, you can ask for a partial refund until July 1st. There are 5 different residence communities. All of them are located on campus, and there are 4 different room types. So we have a basic room where it's just you and 1 roommate, and you'll have a shared bathroom for the floor. Those bathrooms typically have 3 or 4 toilet stalls, 3 or 4 showers. So it's not like you're competing with 20 people for 1 bathroom. Okay, it's a community bathroom. The nicer rooms, you'll be sharing a room with 1 other person and maybe sharing the bathroom with just 1 other room. So it would be 4 of you using the bathroom. We have about 2,700 students that live on campus. These students typically do better academically their first year, and they report being less stressed because they don't have to worry about all of those tasks and chores that we just covered. You could also join a learning community if you live in the dorms or residence halls. If you are an aviation major, if you're a pre-nursing major, maybe you are trying to think of what else there is. Like there's a Black motivated men learning community, I think. So there's, yeah.
Engineering. I know,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of them all. Yeah, some of them are like interest based and some of them are major focused. But yeah, they're available.
Yeah. And those are awesome because they're completely free. They're part of your residence hall fee already. And they have a designated peer mentor for you who's going to hold study sessions for you, who's going to make sure that you are getting all the support you need in your academics. They're making sure that you make friends within your area. So it is I really recommend it if you plan on living in the residence halls and there's a learning community that you feel, strongly about joining. There are different meal plan options depending on how often you want to eat in the dining halls. There are meal plans where you get all 3 meals, plus all 3 meals a day, plus some extra funds to use to get a coffee, to get a little sandwich on the go. Just like everything else, if you're getting that full meal service, it is going to be more expensive. There are also plans where maybe you're getting 250 meals for the semester, which is usually, more like 2 meals a day. And then you get some funds where maybe you just grab a coffee, bagel or something for breakfast. So different options, different prices. And then again, you're going to live with at least 1 other person. You might have up to 3 roommates, and they're going to match you and hopefully find someone that has similar interests with you. Yeah, that was a lot, but good information.
Nice job. Yeah. Yeah, our upcoming housing sessions will be super helpful too. Just if you're not quite sure which decision to make, they'll go a little bit more in depth in what those options are. So diving a little bit deeper into the details of your budget and some of these costs like housing, the next one is health insurance. And again, for health insurance, we get so many questions about if it's required for students. And yes, it is. So, like I said, 99.9% of the time, it is mandatory for all international students who have an F1 or J1 student visa in the US. So, they're required to have that health insurance coverage. So the Minnesota State University system has a contract with a local health insurance, Minnesota-based health insurance company called United Healthcare. And this is the provider for insurance for all the Minnesota State universities and colleges. And so they buy into that contract to assist with getting negotiating rates for students who are purchasing this health insurance. And so our student government actually work at Minnesota State University has worked very closely with the United Healthcare and the state of Minnesota to negotiate these rates for students. So there has been a lot of student involvement when it comes to this health insurance coverage. So for the student health insurance plan, it does provide medical coverage. And then there are some additional details that our health insurance provider will speak on at orientation about additional benefits and coverage, such as specific things for dental or vision. But typically, the insurance covers anything that's medically necessary or related. And there's different details as far as what you will need to pay if you go for a doctor's appointment versus what the health insurance company will pay. Just keep in mind that health insurance in the US is very expensive. So even while you do have health insurance coverage, that does not mean it automatically covers 100% of your costs when it comes to medical health care. Typically, there is a small amount called a copay or an amount that you will need to pay for. So the insurance company will cover a percentage of your total cost, but you might have some out-of-pocket expenses that you also need to pay. But the purpose of health insurance is to keep what you pay out of pocket much lower than what you would pay if you did not have health insurance. So there will be more details about that specifically at the international orientation that we have in fall. But if you have any questions about that, let us know. We can get you in contact with our health insurance advocate who knows a lot of the details of the policy and plan. For the health insurance, the full health insurance amount for the year must be paid before you can register for classes. So students will register for classes usually during the International Orientation Week in August. So we'll be sending out opportunities for students to make an earlier payment on their health insurance once we know the exact rates of what the health insurance will be for next year. Students can start making those payments online before they even travel to the US. That way, when it comes to orientation, you've paid your health insurance for the year and you have nothing to worry about. You can go ahead and register. So more details on that will be provided, but just keep in mind, no class registration until this insurance is paid. The current estimated cost of insurance for 12 months, as I mentioned earlier, is $2,300. That insurance rate is negotiated each year. And so we're still waiting for the exact amount for the 2024-2025 health insurance year. So we'll update students as soon as that's available. All right, then we'll jump into some scholarship info.
Yeah, scholarships. All right. So scholarships are a really big deal. I think you all know that. So MSU does a great job at making sure you have access to scholarship funding. We start by ensuring that all new bachelor students get the International Maverick Scholarship. So in an earlier slide, we kind of showed you what that impact is on your tuition. But that scholarship right now is valued at $7,700. So it's a big help for everyone. That is renewable each year that you are here until you graduate, as long as you keep a 2.5 term GPA or a 3.0 cumulative GPA. And I will say that 2.5 GPA is like a C average. So C average is average. It's the average grade. So we don't make the standards too hard for you because we want you to keep it. You do have to do some involvement to keep that every year. So community service or cultural events. And we have events that we organize in our office to help you, or we also help you find other opportunities. And then of course you do need to maintain your F1 visa status, and you should do that no matter what. And our office helps you do that. So every undergraduate student gets that International Maverick Scholarship. If you know somebody who goes here, and they referred you before you were admitted, you might be able to get the Refer a Friend Scholarship. So the current student has to refer you before admission. And then if you enroll at the same time as your friend, you both get a $500 scholarship towards your tuition. It's a one-time scholarship. So maybe your friends didn't refer you necessarily now, but when you come and enroll, you might have friends that want to come here, and then you could refer them and also get that $500 reward. You can do that up to 5 times. So it's a pretty good deal. Once you come and are enrolled, then you have access to the scholarship finder. And that is something where every February we have scholarships month. Over 1,000 scholarships are published, and they're typically very competitive. But if you try, you can usually get something. You can combine those scholarships with your International Maverick Scholarship. And again, that's every February that we do that. So not just like even years or every 3 years, every year we have scholarships month. Oh, and I guess I should clarify, if you are a graduate student watching this, unfortunately, the International Maverick Scholarship and Refer a Friend Scholarship are not something you are eligible for. But during that scholarships month, there are certain scholarship opportunities that are available for graduate students. They are very competitive. But if you are looking for funding, the best way as a graduate student would be to look into a graduate assistantship.
Just super quickly, there are a couple additional resources you can look into for other scholarship opportunities outside of Minnesota State University Mankato. So a couple listed here include the Institute of International Education. They have a great list of government-sponsored scholarship opportunities. And that's a great one too for graduate students as well. Education USA. This is a US government funded organization, and they provide advising resources in countries around the world. So in your home country, likely in the capital or other larger cities, there's probably a Education USA office. They can be a great resource for finding out about scholarships that you might have locally in your home country, or other scholarship opportunities that the US Department of State provides. Other resources include NAFSA Financial Aid. That's a professional organization of international education in the US. They have great resources for scholarships and financial aid for students. College Board is very similar to that. They actually have options for financial aid opportunities for international students. And then there's a couple search databases or scholarship databases that you can search, such as internationalstudent.com and studyusa.com, and of course, Minnesota State University scholarship database. So we do encourage you to check those out. Uh, and then I can cover employment opportunities because that was a short slide if you want me to. Um, and then another question we get a lot from students is when can I start working at the university and can I work on campus or can I work in the United States? And the short answer is yes. Um, any student that is studying on an F1 student visa can work in the United States, but the restriction is you can only work on campus at the university that is sponsoring your I-20. So for undergraduate students, you are eligible to work up to 20 hours per week during the semester. And then during semester breaks, like those summer and winter breaks, you can work up to 40 hours per week. For graduate students, it is a little bit different because of some of the policies around graduate work. Uh, Graduate students are restricted to 14 hours of work on campus per week, regardless if it's the semester or the summer and winter breaks. So that's if you have some type of job on campus. If you have a graduate assistantship, the graduate assistantship can allow you to work up to 20 hours per week. So that's the one exception. But in general, for student employment on campus, you will first need to apply for any job on campus. You first need to be registered as a student, so registered for classes for the semester that you're studying in. Then once you are registered for classes, typically within a week of registration, you will get access to the university job portal, and that is called Handshake. So Handshake is the place where you can access any on-campus job opportunity that's currently available. So we would encourage you to look for jobs there and apply directly for any on-campus job that you might find. In other cases, sometimes students get jobs simply by going to a department and asking like, hey, do you have any job openings currently or any job openings that might be coming available soon? Sometimes that can help if you go in with your resume and just say, I'm really interested in working with your office. Here's my resume if you want to consider me. Sometimes that works. Other times, sometimes you get referred by other students that might be working on campus. And they're like, oh, by the way, my department is hiring. You should apply through Handshake. So sometimes it's just word of mouth that you might find out about job opportunities. But the university is pretty good about posting all of those jobs through Handshake. And typically, students can earn up to $12 per hour working at most jobs on campus. If you get promoted to more of a management student worker job, you can make a little bit more than that if you've been working for a little while. But typically $12 per hour is what you would earn. So it's the money you earn from on-campus employment is not enough to cover things like your living expenses or your tuition, but it is great for extra pocket money for other expenses. So that's the employment option for students. For off-campus employment, there are two benefits that students with the F1 visa have for getting off-campus work authorization. So any off-campus employment does require authorization ahead of time. And just for simplicity's sake, the two options are curricular practical training and optional practical training. You don't need to know all of the details right now because we provide a lot of this information for students when they attend international orientation and join the university. But in general, for students who are in their second, third, or fourth year of the university, typically their university education, they can have the opportunity for curricular practical training or CPT, and that's something through an internship experience. So there will be more details on that later when you're a current student. And then optional practical training takes place after you complete your program. So this is typically work authorization that you apply for in your final semester at the university, and it allows you to work in the US up to 12 months at a job or an internship that's related to your program of study. And students who are studying in STEM subjects can have an additional 2 years of OPT work authorization after they've completed their program. So those two things are kind of long-term, looking ahead at employment opportunities. But from the first semester, you can work on campus if you find a job.
Thanks, Elizabeth. You can tell that we're doing a double feature. We're both like, I mean, I like hearing my voice, obviously, but it's tiring. All right. Awesome. Well, this is all really important information. It's going to live here on YouTube for you. Before we sign off today, though, here's some also really important information about orientation. So please plan for attending because attendance at orientation is mandatory. Orientation is a full week in the fall. So we begin on Monday, August 19th, and we go through Friday. We have that full week so that you don't feel rushed. You have time to get in, learn the campus, register for classes, set up your bank account, all that good stuff. We do recommend that you arrive on or before August 18th if you can. And the earliest you can actually enter the US is July 20th, 2024. So if you are able to come early and you have the budget for the additional living expenses, I recommend coming as early as you can. The longer you are here prior to your program, so like if you came maybe on August 10th, that's giving you 9 extra days to get your stuff set up in your apartment or your room, get bank account set up, learn how to use the buses, all that good stuff. Don't arrive before July 20th. They will not let you enter the country. So July 20th, that's your day. And last thing, we are so excited to meet you this fall. You know, Elizabeth and I, we're really dedicated to helping you achieve your goals. So we love to see when you are here and you actually get to start with all the good stuff.
Yeah, we are super excited to meet you. That's actually my favorite part is when I get to connect with students when they're going through the application process and then actually meet them at orientation. It's just the coolest thing ever. So I know Alyssa and I love supporting students to get you to that point when we get to see you here on campus. So we're really excited to welcome you this fall. And we also have an awesome group of peer mentors that are getting trained and will be there to help you and assist throughout orientation. So thank you all so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll see you at some of those other webinars.
Thanks, everyone.